So we know there's an issue, but because we look at it through a worldview or a particular ideology, we see it through that lens rather than saying, "Shit, here we are in esoteric and hidden." Because we have, well, maybe we do, and maybe what you're saying in the psychedelic movement is there's not been any kind of initiation. It's a cultural fad. You know, you read about Will Smith going to do ayahuasca, and it's like, well, fuck, Kim Kardashian had a great trip. How's mine going to be? You know,
and it brings us full circle with the, sorry to interrupt you, but it brings us full circle with the view. This is the problem with the view. And what I mean by that is, if you have the materialistic view, you will go and extract mindfulness from Buddhism, and you will treat it like a technology, like a workout, expecting enlightenment. And you will go and extract ayahuasca from the deep lineage and worldview of the Amazon and expect profound breakthrough. But that's what we do. That's our legacy of colonialization and imperial extraction. We've just gone to the diamond mine in Africa and taken what we want and left the rest. And this is a problem with view, is that you have very yearning people looking for something that's not provided in their culture, but their indoctrination is so thorough that they think if they just take a 3-day trip to Peru or to Central America, or they do this or they do that, and they come home, it'll all be fine. What they're not doing is understanding that the very root of the problem is the view, and the view has to change along with everything else, not just your behavior. You're not just going to learn how to meditate for 15 minutes and it's all going to be fine. You have to change how you see reality. And having a breakthrough where you see reality for possibly the first time, but then going home where it's not reinforced, this is why you have such dissonance. And this is why people come to see you, John, and say, I'm having problems reintegrating after this profound experience.
Yeah, I think my brother said something after I had a pretty radical experience. And he said to me, true wisdom, he said, now your job is to remain loyal to your experience. What was revealed to you. And now you remain loyal to that, meaning that I take it seriously, that it's uniquely mine, that I don't have to query its existence because it's unquestionable. The only thing that makes me question the reality of that experience is this view, right? Because I come back to it. I go from a dream, I'm totally in it. And then I wake up and my ego, my worldview comes back on, and I go, that was just a dream.
But you assume that being an isolate, your will is enough to combat the forces of culture. And I don't agree with that. I mean, even
Right.
The strongest of us need mirroring and are susceptible to the mirroring of our culture and our family dynamics and our societies. So this is why Tantra is taught in crucible, in community, and in initiation. And that initiation doesn't just last a few days. You create micro communities, sangha, because the idea is that you're opening your mind. You've done your preparation so that your mind can receive this wisdom, but on the back end, you've created a microclimate so that you can nourish it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think is one of the vital contributions of the Tibetan arts, because they've got the full. It's one of the last remaining. It would be like proponents of Elusis still alive now, saying, "Come and we'll show you." And you do the initiation, you get a long legacy of study, you have the initiation, and then you have the back end, all the preparation for the return, all in place, including a mentor, including community, including all the supports that you need, because there's an understanding that just sending someone into the profundities of reality and then casting them back as isolates into a world that doesn't mirror their recognition can create tremendous psychic disturbance and disequilibrium. Mm-hmm. because nobody's going to mirror back for you what you saw. On the other hand, New Age movements, maybe I've never been to Burning Man, but I assume Burning Man is a tight knit group of people because they understand they've all been through something common out there in the desert and they want to repeat it over and over again. Because there's that sense of familiarity and that sense of tribe and that sense of common value, and they want to do it, repeat over and over and over again, have this profound communal, religious, pseudo-religious experience out in the desert, and then create a kind of secret network or club to maintain the fervor of it.
Right.
The pushback I have with that, it's not all that deep philosophy. It doesn't run deep. It hasn't been enriched over the centuries through the conglomeration of repeated usage by human culture. And so
Okay,
what kind of, yeah.
Go into that for a second, because what I want to pull out of that is that there are inherent structures to communal spaces and that ethics are formed over time. But there are patterns and structures that exist. And I think what you're saying is that through a Tibetan tradition, these kinks have been worked out, at least as best they can for the time being. They've worked out all the kinks of how these deep existential, interpersonal, intrapsychic, symbolic structures are expressed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the power of culture, is that through repeated trial and error, something is woven over time and maintained and passed on that reflects the profundity of the human mind. I mean, we're talking about immortality. We're talking about the soul. Could you imagine anything more complex to work out? And we're talking about 2.5, 3,000 years of legacy in order to really refine that. And that's what the psychonauts of the Buddhist culture have done. They did it very scientifically. They did their psychic exploration. First, there was the Buddha who had the breakthrough experience. I mean, we're talking about somebody, a human being who had a breakthrough experience into the nature of reality and proclaimed he had discovered the deathless state, no longer bound to samsara, the cycles of stress and trauma, free. And then he spends, unlike Christ, who was murdered right away, spends 40 years delivering profound teachings and creating a network so that this experience could be reproducible. Which is where I think Brian's book did a real service, because he's showing like part of the repression was that the early church didn't want people to have such power. Mm-hmm. They didn't, because it would undermine the social structure of the institution. Whereas the Buddha wasn't murdered. He was free to roam in India. They were much more receptive to the message. There was much more inclusivity. You could have Jainism and Buddhism and Hinduism and various tantras all not vying for market share, but giving tolerance. The Buddha had 40-year run of teaching. And so the point is that in that time, he created networks where his teaching and institution were replicated. And then you have a long legacy of people that had this profound breakthrough. They had the Enlightenment over and over and over and over again. And when each successive member of the lineage has these experiences, they start talking about how they got there, what it was like, how it can be reproduced, how it can be refined, how the art of teaching it can be refined. Yeah. Where are the shortcomings? Where are the obstacles? Creating caveats and workarounds and medicinal salves for all of the dark recesses in the labyrinth of your mind where it could all go so wrong.